Jack Lord was a television actor best known for playing Steve McGarrett on Hawaii Five-0. The actor passed away before the millennium and was survived by no children, though he did have a son earlier in his life who tragically passed away. Join Facts First as we explore how Jack Lord lost his only son and then everything got worse. Jack Lord is best known for his work on the classic cop show Hawaii Five-0, but the star had been in the acting game for over a decade before the role came his way. That turned out to be his big break and rocketed him to superstardom. Given all he'd been through up to that point, he deserved the success. Hawaii Five-0 came on the air in 1968 and quickly made Jack Lord a superstar, though the actor had first started acting professionally in the early 1950s. He acted on Broadway early on and branched out into writing and directing after receiving his role on Hawaii Five-0. Despite all of his many accomplishments, there was one thing Jack was sorely missing by the end of his life, and that was a child to survive him upon his passing. Jack Lord was born December 30th, 1920 in Brooklyn. His father owned a freighting business, and Jack would often help out the business after school. This allowed him to develop his practical skills, while his passion for painting helped develop his artistic skills. While working with his father, Jack found himself especially captivated by the sea and loved to paint pictures of it when he got home. As Jack grew older, his passion for the sea inspired him to attend the Fort Trumbull U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, located in London. There, he dedicated himself to maritime studies. His first passion was the sea. Following his education, he went on to serve during World War II by building service bridges in Persia and helping out onboard transport vessels throughout Europe. Following the war, he returned to Fort Trumbull and was put to work producing training films. It was this experience that gave Jack his first taste of filmmaking, and he eventually decided he might have a future as an actor. It took years for Jack to become the superstar he dreamed of being, but he eventually accomplished his goal. Sadly, he had to sacrifice quite a bit to get there. By the time he achieved celebrity status, he was very quiet regarding details from his past. A big part of the star, wanting to keep his lips sealed about the past, came from a tragic incident involving his first wife and son. Though Jack essentially refused to speak on the matter, die-hard fans have still been able to deduce much of the actor's life before attaining stardom. Before becoming a star, he was married. Though Jack had tried to keep this a secret, in the wake of his fame from Hawaii Five-0, the secret inevitably came out via the tabloids. The story of Jack Lord's first wife and only son. Many details about his first marriage and subsequent child remain obscure, but what is known is that his first wife was a woman named Ann Willard, and the two met on a cruise ship. He was on duty aboard a cruise ship and was merely a guest on the ship, though the two hit it off instantly. Jack was won over by her looks, while Ann couldn't resist a man in uniform. The two went on to tie the knot sometime in the early 40s, with some believing the marriage happened in 1942, others in 44. Some variations of the story also suggest the two married on the same cruise ship they met on, with their ceremony being officiated by the ship's captain. Ann Willard had been born in Paris, France in 1921, though her father was a Brooklyn native who worked as a civil engineer. The fact that Ann's father came from Brooklyn gave Jack a means to relate to the woman, as he came from there himself. Before we tell you more about Jack Lord, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Things that came between Jack and Ann. Soon after Jack Lord tied the knot with first wife Ann Willard, he was called away on duty. Only a few months later, he received word from his new wife she'd become pregnant. Given that Jack was still busy with his service, Ann went to live with her parents in France so they could help her through the pregnancy. Jack's son was born without any complications, and Ann chose to name the boy after his father. However, as time went on, Ann grew upset about how little Jack came to visit his new family. Apparently, Jack Lord only saw his son one single time. As a result of Jack being unable to be there for her and her newborn son, Ann ended up asking for divorce. Ann had flirted with the notion of divorce previously and had even mentioned the prospect of it in a letter she wrote to Jack informing him she was pregnant. She had little interest in raising her child in the U.S., which was where Jack was planning to head after World War II. Jack would come to regret his decision not to see his son in the wake of a tragedy that occurred many years later. Shortly before his son's 13th birthday, the boy tragically passed away. No one knows for sure how Jack's son died. The exact cause of Jack's son's death remains relatively obscure. Some suggest the boy had been sickly throughout the majority of his life and didn't end up succumbing until he was 12. Others suggest he may have drowned. But the story that seems to have the most credibility is the theory that Jack passed away because of hepatitis. There are records showing the boy was hospitalized with hepatitis shortly before his death, but there are no official documents tying the two things together. There was also an issue with hurricanes in the area where the young boy and his mother were living, and these hurricanes were known to have killed several people. Regardless of how he died, the results were the same. Jack Lord had lost his only son, and the star never went on to have any more kids. Despite the tragedy they suffered, both Jack Lord and Ann Willard ended up remarrying and finding happiness with other people. Ann married a man and ended up moving to the U.S. with him. They lived happily ever after until her death in 2004. Although she was married for years, she never had another child. Details about Jack Lord's later life. The woman Jack Lord went on to marry was an actress named Marie Denard, who played a big part in helping the fledgling star finally become the successful actor he wanted to be. The two tied the knot in 1949 and remained married until Jack's death in 1998. Despite being married for nearly half a century, Jack and Marie never ended up having kids. They had tried to once, though this ill-fated pregnancy ended in a miscarriage. After suffering through the miscarriage, Marie vowed she never wanted to try again. Jack Lord already had a lifetime's worth of pain behind him by the time he received the role of Steve McGarrett on Hawaii 5-0. The show ran from 1968 to 1980. After becoming a superstar, Jack tried his best to keep his tragic past a secret from fans, but they ended up finding out anyway. Years later, the actor passed away in 1998 as a result of heart failure. Now it's time to hear from you. What was the most surprising part of this story to you? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to FactsVerse if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.